This is Mitchell's Front Page on 94.7 The Pulse.
And I'm joined now by Vivian Allen, who is the Acting General Manager of the bank. Vivian, thank you very much for having us here this morning.
Well, thanks for coming.
What a great day.
Fabulous, yes.
And you've got quite a good setup here as well, I've seen.
We do. We, as you've probably seen, one of our popular aspects of the location is we've got free parking.
Yeah.
Is unusual in Geelong.
Yeah, I didn't realise there was free parking, and I was trying to work out how to get all the material in without that. But now you've got parking for customers, so that helps a great deal. So we've got a very, very enthusiastic team of people here who I met before, and they're working very, very hard. It's a very, very exciting place to be because you've just relaunched back in November. So, you know, it's early days for this new brand, which is Geelong Bank.
Exactly. We've actually been around since 1974. We were started by 80 Ford employees in the Geelong Ford plant. Very common back in the 70s for credit unions to get together because the banks were very regulated in those days.
Yep.
And it was very hard to get loans. So I like to say that we were the original disruptors.
I see. So has the banking sector been a bit more deregulated since then? Because credit unions don't seem to be as common, at least from what I can see. Yes, there's still a few around, but they don't seem to be as common.
No, it's true. There was, when Keating was in, the banking system was deregulated, and that's always a good thing, more competition. But there is a place, particularly in light of the Royal Commission, to have a customer-owned banking section in the financial services. And that's, while we're a bank, we provide all the same services that you would expect of a normal bank, but we are owned by our customers, and it's a key difference.
So in November, you essentially changed the name from a credit union to a bank.
Correct.
What does that mean from a customer's point of view?
Well, same service. Obviously, we've always been customers first as far as our service is concerned. But what it means is that people understand what banking is. We don't have to explain what a credit union is or how we're structured. And obviously, because we are born and bred in Geelong, it gives us a really good platform to grow into the community, and that's our main focus.
And has there been a lot of interest in the early stages from November?
There has been. I think, you know, what particularly on the lending side, we have got people who have particularly first home buyers who need that helping hand, and FCCS, which was our previous name, didn't mean anything to them. But Geelong Bank, they know what it is. They know we're going to give them a good deal. They know we're going to hold their hands every step of the way.
On that point, particularly with first home buyers, do you think people are deterred from trying to get credit at the moment? Just because anecdotally, there's a lot of stories that things are being tightened up after the Banking Royal Commission, and there's a lot of new hoops that people have to jump through. And if people have a lot of properties and a lot of collateral behind them, they're still finding that they are being turned down for loans potentially.
Yes, it's true. The regulators have brought in a lot of guidelines, as they call them, for us to work with, but that needed to happen. There was some unsafe lending in the industry, but we've always prided ourselves in making sure that whenever we give a loan, it's suitable for the member or the customer. They can afford it. They're not going to be living on 2-minute noodles for the rest of their lives to take out a mortgage. And we're very lucky in Geelong that obviously the affordability is so much better than it is in, say, Melbourne or Sydney.
Maybe not for much longer. I know there's a lot of bargains and good opportunities out there, but I think increasingly people in Melbourne are becoming aware of just how good we have it down here in Geelong.
That's true. That's true.
And then from the deposit side, is that similar to a bank as well in terms of what you offer, or do you have term deposits, competitive interest rates, etc.? We
do. It's really important to note that we are also covered by the government guarantee on our funds of $250,000. And we currently have a 7-month fixed-term deposit special at 2.8%, which is very competitive. But again, we have special purpose interest accounts. We also, for anybody who's living or working in Geelong, we have what we call our affinity account, and that pays the RBA cash rate of 1.5% for any balance over $2,000, no fees. Very competitive.
So is that all underwritten and controlled by internally, or are you affiliated with some other organisation that provides that?
No, we're completely independent, staunchly independent. We do have partners. For example, we offer insurance, and we use QBE for that particular product. We do financial planning, and that's through a company called Bridges, because we're experienced in banking, particularly lending, deposits and so on, but as you know, they're specialist services.
So how do you fit into the broader landscape? Most people out there would know about the big four banks, but as you sort of alluded to with the Banking Royal Commission, there's been some question marks raised about banking, and I think people are perhaps looking at alternatives or rethinking how they do banking, particularly if they've been with the same bank for a long time, which is, I would assume, most people.
Yes.
So how do you fit into that broader landscape? You're out there with, how many other people are there outside the big four? Hundreds of other people right around Australia that are also trying to compete?
There are, and I think we are lucky in that whilst we're one organisation here in Geelong, we're part of a bigger movement of customer-owned banks. So there's the big four, there's a couple of next-tier banks that tend to be regional banks, and then there's customer-owned banks and credit unions throughout Australia. So we have got quite a strong voice. They're very strong lobbyists for us. But the main thing is that we are a community-based organisation. Our focus is on Geelong and the wider area. We do have customers throughout Australia, because we've also invested a lot in our technology, so people can use Apple Pay, Google Pay, National Payments Platform. A lot of our members, they don't actually come into the branch, even if they live in Geelong. We deal with them over the phone or the net. So we've got the old-fashioned counter service for people who want that, but we've also got the technology.
It's amazing the bigger banks that don't have some of those technologies, like the Apple Pay or using the new payments platform yet. And it's quite staggering to me that they haven't embraced it, whereas I'd imagine in your position, to stay on the cutting edge, you kind of need to go where the market is going.
Exactly. And we because we're smaller, we can be nimble. We have a very flat management structure. We can make decisions quickly, and we can put them into train quickly.
Well, I was going to ask about that. Given that you are customer-owned, how does the hierarchy work? Because obviously the big banks have to deliver a profit to the shareholders, and they have a board and a CEO that's usually on at least $5 million a year or something. How does it work here?
Well, we do have a board, and all of our board members are Geelong locals. Some of them are people who worked at Ford. We've recently had our first female director, associate director, join the board. Then in my capacity, I report to the board. But in terms of the customers themselves, it's a democratic credit union. So every year when we have our annual general meeting, they're able to vote if there's somebody standing for the board, for example, and any of the motions that are moved.
So if you are a customer, do you then get to vote as well?
You can, if you wish to, yes. Yes.
Interesting. In terms of your branches, is this the only branch, the one that we're in today?
It is. As I mentioned before, we use technology to basically reach people.
So when you're talking to people, whether it's from home loan points of view or becoming potential customers, what sorts of things do they care about? What sorts of things make you competitive? Is it all down to what that interest rate is, or are there other things that they're looking for as well?
I think for a lot of people, interest rate might be the first thing that they ask about. The government guarantee is very important. There's no doubt about that. But it's also the service side of things, because what we often hear is that people can get lost in big organisations. They might be dealing with somebody that they're comfortable with, but they get moved or they leave, and then they've got to tell their story over and over again. We pride ourselves on basically being relationship bankers.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for having us here this morning. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's a great spot for us to broadcast from. And if people are interested in what you're doing, I'd suggest coming on down because it looks like a very friendly bank here.
Thank you very much, Mitchell.
No problems. Thank you very much, Vivian Allen, joining us there from the Geelong Bank.